I found a phone, and I realized it was a phone that she was using just to talk to him. All my worries and questions and all that were answered.
I just got really scared that my dad would kind of do something.
It was a lot of time that I was alone and spending with the kids.
A lot of things happened that wasn't necessarily positive for a young couple. I started living in my car full time.
I was a little mad because I didn't want to have to pick a parent.
And it put me in a position, obviously, to be a dad with a broken number of families.
I committed a crime out of anger.
I think we both failed in that department just because we just didn't want to deal with it.
Then when I had my daughter, things got a little rough. We were both young. It was a lot to deal with.
I kind of hated myself for a while of what I kind of built. Staying here and fighting for what I have, which is not much, but it's a lot to me.
On my daughter's birthday, she wanted to go to a drive-in and watch a movie, so we took her together as a family. The following day, the minivan was a disaster, popcorn everywhere. So I wanted to just go get all the seats out of the back of the van. I found a phone, and I realized it was a phone that she was using just to talk to him. All my worries and questions and all that were answered at that moment. I decided to head back to my hometown, and halfway between was where his house was. You know what? I'm just gonna swing by there. I ended up lashing out. I committed a crime out of anger.
He was a truck driver. He was working for a food company. He was gone a lot. It was a lot of time that I was alone and spending with the kids, and by the time he got home, he was so tired, and there just was a breakdown of, communication. In the end, it was kind of like I just felt like we were roommates. I think we both failed in that department just because we just didn't want to deal with it, so we just kind of ended up avoiding each other and, doing other things to occupy our minds.
And when I pulled off the exit to go to his house, I pulled into the driveway, and he was actually just standing in the driveway next to his bicycle. My next thing I could do was drive my car and run over his bicycle. I ran his bicycle over, and I left, and he called the police. They had me in there for open murder. It was an all-out manhunt. I surrendered myself, and whatever, and it didn't go down that bad.
I was married at 19. I got divorced at 24. It was a lot of pressure because I didn't want to be a divorcee at 24. I'm like, how can this just shows automatic failure. A lot of things happened that wasn't necessarily positive for a young couple. I had just graduated from college. My ex-husband just got out of prison around that time. Then when I had my daughter, things got a little rough. We were both young. It was a lot to deal with. And I think it took a toll on our situation. I met my ex-husband, I was in 6th grade. He was my brother's best friend. My brother's 3 years older than me. They were already friends, and I always had this crush on him, and he was not giving me the time of day. He was not. But I used to tell him, we gonna be together. He like, whatever. We end up being together. He kind of took care of me like I was his child, and like I depended on him a lot. When I turned 19, he was like, well, let's get married. And I was like, well, we should get married in the summertime. He was like, no, I'm asking you, do you want to marry me? I was like, what? He was like, no, do you want to marry me? And I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, well, we're going to marry next week. Then you don't have to worry about it. We literally got married the next week. But considering, our marriage lasted like 5 years. He did end up going back to prison during the time that we were still married. When he came out of prison, a year later, we ended up having my daughter.
Very often, the court sees parents who despise the other parent. They forget that they used to love them, they forget that they used to like them, they forget that the other parent gave them the greatest thing in their life, and they're hurting their child. There's no reason to hurt any child. Most parents say they would jump in front of a moving bus. They would take a fatal bullet for their child, but yet they're actually hurting their child on a daily basis by not respecting the other parent. I meet many kids privately in chambers, and it's never just one parent they're complaining about. They're complaining about both parents. One might be 99% right, but that there is room for improvement. We all could be better parents. And it's all about the kids, and they need to remember that.
The criteria was how close is it to my daughter's school and what neighborhood it's in. Literally, the day I signed my lease was 2 days before I was supposed to go to China for a month. I didn't really get a chance to really do a lot of background checks on companies. So for a whole month, even though it was paid for, I never lived there. So when I got back, I tried to cut on the heat because it was a little cold. I don't hear anything, I don't feel nothing. So I put in a work order online. And that week turned into a month. And they did anything, and I'm like, this is dangerous. I can't keep sleeping in this house. It's getting cold, it's illegal. I don't want to lose my daughter. If somebody find out about this, it's just gonna be bad. So I started living in my car full time. I had to make a decision. I gotta give my daughter to this man who really don't like me that much, but it's her father. When I used to get off super late at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, it was okay, I just need somewhere to park. As long as I keep $10 in my gas tank, it'll run my gas tank all night, and I'm not gonna run out of gas. I would recline my seat all the way back to the back seat, and I would curl up in a ball and keep my heat on. I just knew as long as I got $10 in my tank, I'm good. I would take a shower, in between friends' houses or at the gym. I did that until May.
My life then till now has always been, I guess, me trying to search where I want to be. Graduated high school, I went to college for a year and then decided to go to the military. I wanted to see what it's about. It wasn't about, me going and being a hero and me going and saving this. And I wanted to, I guess, be important to somebody. I wanted to feel like I was important to somebody. I wanted to, be the master of my own future. So I'm like, hey, so why not just go check out the military? And I went in for 8 years. I was a medic. Well, Isaiah and Dorian, I had them when we were in Missouri. Their mom's Liz, and she lives in Arkansas now. Gavin was next, and his mom's Nikki. Olivia was next with Jess, and Aiden is the youngest, and his mom's, Alyssa. So I got 5 kids, 4 mothers, and which was the biggest juggle of my life. I guess the lack of knowledge of how to be in a relationship or how a relationship's supposed to be put me in a position, obviously, to be a dad with a broken number of families. So I kind of hated myself for a while of what I kind of built, what kind of family I built, until I realized what I had. If things do get a little harder, I think about my mom's. She had 18 of her own, and then she raised several of her daughter's kids. So me having 5 kids is normal. Because when they're all gone, I am lost. I have no idea who I am. I don't want to be home because I don't have to cook a giant meal. I can't cook just for myself. So I either work all the time or I just hibernate in my room somewhere.
You have to really go into what are your emotions? Are you really in tune with why you're so hurt? What has really happened? Maybe you need individual counseling to sort out that with someone private. Really address what those issues are underlying that have hurt you and hurt the relationship. And then the next step would be, can you communicate some of those to this partner or this ex-partner? Are you able to somewhat address these things and then put them aside and prioritize on these minor children that you're both trying to create and grow into successful adults?
I was the one that filed for divorce. It wasn't just blindsiding me, I did it. But then I wasn't prepared to deal with the loneliness that comes afterwards. It was not about our relationship that I was so devastated about. It was about the commotion that I missed. I mean, just mayhem. You got, all the stuff that goes on when you have kids, and then all of a sudden, I'm just sitting there alone and I don't even know what to do. I watched SportsCenter 7 times in a row. I couldn't have told you a score of the game, of any game, because I just didn't know what to do with myself. All of a sudden, everything was different. That just built up resentment, anger, everything else. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. I didn't know how to release it. I refused to do any of that stuff.
The first time that they went to see each other, I was like really scared. It was at my school once. So my dad was there and my mom got out of the car to start talking to him. I just got really scared that my dad would kind of do something, and I was just really scared.
I built it up like a volcano, and eventually it just came out of me. I had a running in with Jennifer where she was just giving me a hard time about the kids. Then she was threatening to not let me see the kids.
Oftentimes, parents make mistakes. They make mistakes because they're reacting to things that they perceive. They're oftentimes very angry or hurt, or they've had feelings of betrayal, and they act emotionally. And the other side will react to those emotional experiences. But what happens is the children become the innocent victims of this emotional decision that parents are making. They do things, their children will feel the effect.
Once we had went to court and we had said everything that we were going to go do, I ended up submitting paperwork that I moved to this place. I was able to start seeing my daughter more regularly, but I used to wonder, like, wow, you know, will me and my ex-husband ever get to a point where we're like friends again, or where we could see each other and not argue? The same passion you fell in love with typically is the same passion you have when you divorcing that person. It's the same. Everything that you would give to a person because you really love them is everything you're willing to do because that person is going to hurt you.
It was a little sad. I was a little mad because I didn't want to have to pick a parent. I didn't want to choose parents because I thought it would be like mean to both parents because they're both good parents. So if I choose the parent, you'll like make one of them feel a type of way.
The children don't know how to really handle this adjustment. It's all new to them. So you'll see more anxiety. You might see a decrease in academic functioning. Obviously, some sadness, maybe some depression that might follow, or irritability. Validating that emotion for these children, letting them know, I see that you're sad. I see that you're upset about this. Letting them know that they have that voice and it's okay.
Going to prison, being out of the kids' lives for that long, it really put things into perspective for both me and her, I believe.
Well, it wasn't easy. It was obviously very hard on the kids. It was a day-to-day experience. You never knew if they were going to be sad, angry. They had lots of questions. Why did he leave us? Doesn't he love me? Any emotion that any human being's going to have. First you're angry about it, then you're sad about it, then you accept it, and then you deal with it, and then all of a sudden they're back, and you're like, holy cow, now we got to experience this whole other aspect of it, which is a better aspect than the other way, but at the same time, it's a whole emotional process for the kids again. When he left, Maverick was she was not even 2 yet. And when he got out, she was, almost 4. So there was a huge gap in there. So it was like she didn't realize, like, oh, I have a different dad, because my husband now has been in the picture.
What we wanted to do is tell parents that we understood what they were going through, dealing with the emotions of family breakup, or that if children are out of wedlock, that they want to be able to see children. So what they're going through is real and normal, and it's not something they should be ashamed of. And then we would provide education to help them through that process, and also let them know that their children are going through the same thing at the same time. When parents decide to divorce, it's an adult decision. But for children, it's almost like a drive-by shooting. They're just sitting there, and all of these things just happen to change their life.
We didn't get the late night conversations about, hey, I like this girl, what should I do? Or, hey, I had a situation in school and I don't know how to handle it. I didn't get the advice type thing for situations from my parents because my pops just really didn't have. He was raised different, so was my mom, but so he didn't really have that knowledge to pass down like that. My mom, she had the knowledge, but but not like I have now. I realized once I had my kids and my brothers, how we were raised then, we don't want to raise our kids that way. We don't want to have to yell all the time.
We mess around with him and it's just so fun. He'll just tickle us and just make sure we can't move, and it's just so fun. He's always laughing when it happens.
He would trap us with his legs, and we could not get out.
I didn't settle for anything less than what my kids were supposed to have, our kids were supposed to have. So I didn't want to be told, this is what you're supposed to have. My whole life was, this is what you're supposed to have. My whole life was, this is who you're supposed to be. I didn't know what I'm supposed to be or what I want to be. And I wanted to be dad. So I just fought for what I know my kids needed. And it was a right to see both parents.
Parents have to love their child more than they dislike the other parent. The bottom line is if the parents can't cooperate, communicate, co-parent, it's going to hurt their child. And then they're going to have a stranger in a black robe make decisions for their household.
When things are taken away, it kind of just makes you step back and realize like, oh, it wasn't all my fault, or it wasn't all his fault. We were both accountable. We both were at fault.
First, you want to push the blame on everybody else. You want to be like, well, if she didn't do this, I wouldn't have done this, and I wouldn't be here. Eventually, you get past the anger and the pushing the blame onto other people. You get to the point where you're just saying, all I can control is myself, and all I can do is look at the bright side of things. Even now, that's, it's not all rainbows and butterflies between us all the time.
Initially, a lot of families come into my office very stressed with a lot of conflict. This is new to them. They have a lot of emotions on their own ends, trying to deal with those, processing the changes that they've had to go through. So initially, there is a lot of conflict. First, I have to break down the communication piece of putting emotions aside and really focusing on the best interest of the children, but also focusing on what is their end goal? What are they trying to achieve by having these discussions or these conflicts? And so I always ask parents, before you send that letter or that text message or that email, ask yourself, what is the end goal? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to have them, guilt trip them into something? Are you trying to actually get confirmation about something? And if it's an emotional charged response, don't send that message, right? Don't send that email, because that then creates more tension that is unnecessary, that didn't need to happen. So really having the parents reflect on how are they communicating and what is something that each of them can change a little bit to have better cohesion.
If he didn't live up to my standards, I was hard on him. And once he saw that I wanted him to really be involved and I wasn't gonna tell him what he should do in his house. So once I realized like my problems and my faults, and I was willing to look in the mirror and look at the things that I needed to work on. Once I realized that people, personalities, and their feelings are dictated based on what you give them, and sometimes you gotta push and pull sometimes. But if you could be smooth in the middle, then everything work out. So now we made it where we don't have to see each other too much. When we do see each other, it's at the school plays or events. And Ali is happy because both her parents are there. It's never like hostile anymore.
Dad used to say bad things about Mom, and Mom used to say bad things about Dad. And then it just made me feel like both of you are bad parents. And I don't want to feel like both of you are bad parents, because both of you are really good parents.
You can't badmouth the other parent, even if they may deserve it, in the earshot of a child. When they do that, a child feels responsible. Parents don't understand that children love both parents. And even if that parent has done things that they shouldn't have, if they're not good parents, you have to remember that parent and that child are still connected. And they feel responsibility, and they feel hurt.
Sometimes I just drop things. Sometimes we discuss things and get things worked out. Sometimes I just bite my tongue. I mean, it is what it is sometimes. And she does the same with me. I know she does. I mean, I know she's annoyed with certain things, and sometimes she tells me, sometimes she doesn't.
Yeah, there's a couple annoyances here and there, but I think that's, like, I'm out running errands, you're bringing the kids home too early. Like, you didn't tell me that, things like that. We're going to be the kids' parents for the rest of their lives. So, and if we have the same views and the same goals and whatnot for the kids, I mean, there's no reason for us to not get along. I just think communication is key.
I think it's just
a lot better when we can just hang out and actually spend together as like all of us. Now I can, I guess, hang out with my real dad, and I really like it.
Having time for yourself, focusing on yourself, figuring out yourself, and learning to be happy, it takes time. Each person needs to heal, I guess. I guess that's maybe what I did.
Parents need to be able to go through their own grieving process of that because they're used to not having to share time with their children. So it can be very frustrating at first. A lot of emotions can be attached to that because they really want to be able to have 100% time with their children. So realizing that they have to emotionally work through that, maybe going to support groups, maybe having their own individual therapy to process those sad feelings, but then understanding that when you do have your child for your time, really making the most out of that, making some time adjustments now that you're a single parent household on how you can prioritize your children when you do have them.
Children shouldn't be made to feel that divorce is something bad that happened to them, but rather to be able to show something positive.
My kids have a stepdad now, and he's a great father. I'm very, very thankful that he is such a good father, and he treats my kids like they're his own kids. They're taken care of financially, they're loved, everything they had while we were still married, and I'm still in their life. And because we have a good relationship, my kids can see me any day.
Isaac, he kind of helps me on the more educational side, and my dad kind of helps me with sports a lot. So my dad would take me to parks and do plays with me for football and stuff. I have a person to teach me about school that can help me in school, and a person to help me in sports. And so basically it's just two people to talk to. You always have someone to talk to. So it's pretty fun.
In the beginning, it was really hard to let them go, but it wasn't about me. It was about my kids and what they wanted and what was good for them. And they'd already missed out on so much time with him. I just had to trust the process. I just had to trust that everything was going to work out.
Parents have to work together for the best interest of their child. What we see a lot is the parents want more time, more quantity. So as judges, we are constantly telling people, because you have chosen to get divorced, you're not going to have the quantity that you want. It's about quality. It's about parenting your child so your child has an awesome childhood.
This co-parenting situation is probably the hardest thing anybody would ever do in their life. It was like a war, which is sad, and that I don't get it. It's just, it should be easy. It should be easy to co-parent, but I realize a lot of people's emotions get tied into it, and it ends up being about how your parenting relationship is going versus how we should do for the kids. And it's more important about how you made me feel over how what we're doing is making the kids feel.
I'm just waiting for them to actually stop arguing and get along more often and stop fighting over the simplest stuff. I honestly don't think about the choices they make. As long as I get to see them both at a certain time, I'm fine with it, as long as I get to see them.
My kids are the reason why staying here and making this everyday struggle a constant. They're the reason why I can't quit. I don't want them seeing me as a quitter or giving up, because our kids learn 90% of what they need to know in life from us. They can go outside and experience a lot outside this house, a lot. But still, what they saw here first is what they saw here first. If you don't give them something to compare to what they see outside, that's what they're gonna hold on to. Outside is what they got, if you don't give them something inside. So staying here and fighting for what I have, which is not much, but it's a lot to me. It's more than what I had growing up. So that my kids are the reason why it's so important for me to stay here and do all this stuff I have to do.
We can always guarantee he keeps everyone fed and everyone happy. He's trying to get a job where he can be around the house more often, so he can hang out with us, get to know us better.
Right now, they're little sponges, right? They're picking up everything that these parents are doing. They're modeling long-term, how do you handle conflict? What should a normal or healthy household look like? And so it's so important that you're modeling good structure, good communication, problem solving, healthy coping skills, all of these things that are gonna set the tone for when they're off away from your house, whether they're in college or living by themselves, having their own families. They're picking up so much from what mom and dad are doing in the household.
You don't have to always argue with the other parent. And you don't have to send messages back through the child with the other parent. Or don't talk bad on the phone with your girlfriend in front of your child, because then your child internalizes that and thinks something bad about the other parent. So I really try not to talk bad about her father. Even when he was skipping out on his child support when he had to pay, even when he would say he was gonna come pick her up and he didn't come, I had to stop. I had to not show her that part.
I think it's really awesome because I don't have to choose who I like best. I don't gotta say I like mom best and then make my dad feel the type of way. I don't gotta say I like my dad best and make my mom feel the type of way. I just get to hang around both of them and I don't gotta choose no sides. So that's really cool.
Even though you're no longer going to be related to each other because of the split up, that it is important to understand that you're still family to the same children. And a child will hold back from you if they feel you don't want to know or hear about what their true feelings are. By giving the child the right to love the other parent, you are in fact opening a door between you and your own child that will never be closed. An example would be a case that I was involved in where the parents did not get along. They didn't talk to each other. But the child came back one day from a parenting time and went to the dad's house, and he was living primarily with his dad at that time, and said, "My mom's not going to get me next Wednesday night." And the father said, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Because she's getting an award of Employee of the Year." And he thought for a second, and he was going to say, "Well, it's great she's such a fantastic employee, it's too bad she's such a lousy mother." But he didn't. He held his tongue this time, and he thought about what he learned from Smile. And he went to the phone and he called the flower shop to order flowers to be delivered to the mother on that day that she was going to be given an award. And when they asked for the card that they wanted with the flowers, he said, "Mom, I'm very proud of you. I love you." And he signed his son's name. Now his son heard this and he said, "Wow, Dad, why'd you do that?" He said, "Because it's the right thing to do." Remember, children learn from what you tell them, but they'll remember from what they see and what they experience. Well, a few days later, when the event occurred, he told me, this man who did this, that he got a phone call. The phone rang, and his son answered the phone, and it was his mother. And she said, and she was crying, he said, that "I just got your flowers. And no award they could have given me today would have been more important than the flowers I got from you." And he said when his son hung up the phone, he went over to him and he gave his dad a hug and a kiss, which was something that he normally received from his child. They were demonstrative. However, he said he felt something from his child that day that he had never felt before. And he realized the flowers may have been a gift to his ex-spouse, who he really didn't like, but the flowers was something that opened a door between him and his child, because it told his child that he had the right to love his mother, and he could share that with the father. And that was something that may have been done for the ex-wife, but it was a bond in a relationship that can never be changed between the father and the child.
I needed to communicate. Not just my kids deserved it, but my kids' mothers deserved a better person to communicate with. You know, they could be horrible, evil people. Still doesn't matter. You need to learn how to communicate with horrible, evil people, the most amazing people, and whoever it is. Communication was huge for me, and I think that you have to accept, first and foremost, I think is what's the most important, accept the fact that you're in it. My kids are getting old enough to where they're gonna have their own lives. I want them to come talk to me about it. I want them to come talk to me about the girls, especially the girls, because to me it's gonna be fun with my boys. talk to me about girls, and then with my daughter, it's gonna be a horror show talking about boys. Opportunity to be able to talk to them was big, important to me. Or better yet, flip that. The opportunity for them to talk to me is really important. So that's my goal now. I think that's my number one goal every day, is to be able to have my kids come talk to me. If they're stressed out, or if I said something that offended them, I want them to be comfortable enough to come say, hey, Dad, we talked the other day, or just earlier, you kind of hurt my feelings. I want them to say that.
We can just go to him and he'll help us. This one night, I can't go to sleep, and I went to my dad and he helped me. He let me lay in his bed and I got a good sleep.
I'm grateful to it. My kids are, I'm sure, grateful because they see me happier now these days. They see that I'm more relaxed and I'm not just tense, I'm not just here. I'm actually in it. I never really got when people bragged about their kids until I started being able to talk more about my kids. I started taking joy in that my kids make me happy. So now I'm enjoying these crazy nutballs, man, and you know what I mean? And it's just, I don't know. I'm happier now because they're happy. So
We just like playing games with each other, hanging out. It's pretty nice overall.
We believe that there's never too much information you can give the other parent. You need to treat the other parent how you want to be treated. You need to extend an olive branch. You need to be kind, considerate, classy, and professional. And that way, hopefully the other side will see that, appreciate it, and treat you the same way. And then you'll never have to come in front of a court. You'll never have to spend money on an attorney. Never have to say the system's the worst. So it starts at home with the adults acting like adults and the adults treating children as their priority, because it's all about the kids.
Like if I call him now and be like, hey, can you take Lily? He won't do it every day, but he'll be like, okay, this sounds important, let me help. Or for example, they didn't have arts and crafts on Friday, so Lily called me. I was in the middle of working, but because I have a highly flexible job, I told her I would be there in 20 minutes. So I didn't get mad at Aaron or say like, hey, Aaron, you wasn't here to pick up the baby. What's going on? I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I'll ask questions later. Let me just go pick her up. And then he called me apologizing. I know this is your day to work. I don't want you to have to take off work. I'm sorry. That wasn't the response I was gonna get 10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And my daughter now can have a balanced thing. And now she says, wow, Mommy, I didn't know you were the fun mommy.
I think it's awesome because I can see my dad more often and I can see my mom more often.
It is an everyday struggle. I have forgiven, whether there's been an apology or not. I mean, it's not worth it anymore.
Understanding that if they could get to forgiving and saying, there have been hard things in my life, this ex has hurt me to my core, has created this uprooting of a lifestyle that I was used to. Being able to forgive, it's very tearful emotions in those sessions, a lot of yelling in those sessions because there's just so much pent up. Really feeling free of that allows them to say, can I move forward now?
The twins are probably 8, and I had an awakening moment. I came home, the twins had did something they weren't supposed to do, and I was gonna talk to them. I was sitting there yelling at them and trying to discipline them, and one of the twins was like, I told him to come here and come talk to me. He was like, no. And like, my mind was blown, like literally. And it's probably the first time I can ever really say my mind was blown. Like, wow, did he just say no to me? So I asked him, I stopped for a moment, thank God. I was like, so what do you mean no? Why would you say no to me? And he explained, like, you never play with us. My heart broke. It's like, you never play with us. All you do is come home and send us upstairs and you just, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I realized I was playing dad, but I was just a roommate. I didn't spend that actual real quality time. I actually became dad and not just the man that's actually providing for you. And they became my kids and not just somebody I'm protecting. It breaks my heart, even today. The thought of your kids, like, you have kids, so the thought of your kids wondering what dad or mom's thinking or why can't dad or mom play with me just breaks your heart. So
it wasn't very, I guess, fun when they still wouldn't get along, it would always kind of make me afraid, and then I didn't really like it. So, I mean, it makes me feel a lot better now that they all get along. Like when they started getting along, I'm like, well, maybe we can just like start hanging out more and like just see each other.
They didn't get along so well, like they couldn't talk without like arguing about something. So now they can like actually have a conversation, and like they could like it's basically like they're friends. It's way better like than it was. I love it.
Just trying to accommodate for the other parent's life is important. And I learned that since it took both of y'all to make the baby, if you give both of the parents the opportunity to step up and do it, then it works out. It worked out for me and my ex-husband because I was willing to let up and allow him to do his father thing in his way. It's a progression, and I do feel like anybody can achieve whatever they want if they look at their schedule and try to make it work for them. It took years. It wasn't like an overnight thing. Pressure, it either breaks pipes or makes diamonds. And I feel like I came out a diamond because I didn't let the pressure break me.
First and foremost, don't hate yourself. I hated myself for at least a couple of years because of the life I provided for my family. As a man, you want to provide a life that your family can be proud of and they can flourish in. Just accept the fact that you're a father, and accept the fact you have a little you that's looking up at you. And you're the first thing they see or want to see and look for, and then move forward and start doing something better. Because everything you do literally is for them. Everything that you do literally affects them. So your kid is still going to notice who you are. Whether it's up to you for them to accept you, love you, and be like you, or reject you and want to forget about you because you're not there. Those are the only options you have when it comes to that once you accept the fact that you're in it.
You know, staying angry at somebody is only hurting you. It's not hurting them. And that's what it comes down to. It bleeds too much into every other aspect of your life. You can't go on and have a normal relationship with somebody else. And you can't have a relationship with your own kids. I acted wrong. I was, I didn't, I should have did things differently. We got to that point because of my situation that I put myself into. I hope that other people can get to that point without going through the same situation I went through.
Do you really want to do that to your children? And that have parents understand that they're tied to each other for the rest of their lives. Children are oftentimes forgotten in this process. You can't escape this responsibility. If you choose to have children, you have to put yourself second oftentimes to the needs of your children.